Hello students, today I am going to explain you the chapter The Browning Version by Terence Strategan. In the previous video I have shared the introduction and summary of the chapter. Today we will follow the detailed explanation. The scene is a short extract from the play The Browning Version. Tableau is a boy aged 16 who arrives at the school to do extra work for Mr. Crocker Harris, his teacher. He meets another teacher, Frank, and engages in a conversation with him while waiting for Mr. Harris. Frank is another teacher in that school who is young in age. Mr. Crocker Harris is middle-aged. Frank saw Tableau and asked his name and in which class he studies. Tableau answers him and tells him that he studies in the lower 5th standard and he cannot specialize until he gets his division or remove, or you can say result. Frank asked him whether he got the remove or not, and Tableau replied that his master, means Mr. Crocker Harris, doesn't reveal the information like other masters. Here in this chapter, criterion stands for a standard by which something is judged. Frank asked if Mr. Crocker Harris doesn't reveal the remove earlier like other masters. Tableau tells him that he already knows how Mr. Harris is. Frank supposes that there is a rule that the form result should be revealed on the last day of the term. Tableau agrees and told him that Mr. Harris follows it very seriously. Frank shares that he doesn't follow it, but still Tableau should wait until tomorrow to know his result, to which he agrees. Strung together means to combine two different things into something useful. Frank asks Tableau about what remove he is interested to take further, and he replies, science. Frank tells him that they have some lazy students in science, to which Tableau clarifies that he is interested in the subject. That is why he wants to take it. Frank tells him that he is not interested in science, which he has to teach in the school. Tableau thinks that the subject that Frank teaches is still a good deal than the book he is currently reading. Upon asking about the book, Tableau tells him about the name of the author and the book. That is, Aeschylus, the author, and Agamemnon, the name of the book. Tableau further shares his view about the Agamemnon. He thinks the plot is good, but the way those Greek words are taught to them combined together is useless. Captain means to make someone stay in a place, especially in school, as a punishment. Chap here means a man who you know and like. On criticizing the book, Frank tells him that you are sounding a little bitter about Mr. Crocker Harris. Further, Frank asks him if he is staying in school as a punishment, to which Tableau replies that he is in the school on the last day of the term due to extra work. He was ill last week, due to which he was absent for a day, for which he is compensating now by doing extra work. He further says that he feels that Mr. Harris also has extra work himself because he is leaving tomorrow for good. Harris didn't have any extra work, and yet with such a good weather he has to come to school. He also adds that he wanted to play golf at that moment. Frank comforts him by saying that he will get his remove tomorrow due to the extra work he is doing for Mr. Harris. Tableau is unsure of this and tells him that this might work for other teachers, but Mr. Harris is different. He doesn't give a student a remove for doing extra work. Tableau also asked Mr. Harris about his remove, to which the master gave an astonishing answer. Got carried away means to become overly excited or to take things too far. Imitating means copying. Frank asked him what Mr. Harris told him upon being asked about his remove. Taplow imitates Mr. Crocker Harris and told him exactly what his master answered him. Mr. Harris told him that he will get what he deserves, nothing less and nothing more. Taplow feels that he might have marked him down for taking extra work because he doesn't have human feelings. Then he realizes that he has said too much, therefore he apologizes to Frank. Frank asked him to repeat what he just said about Mr. Harris, and he starts imitating him again. Frank tells him that his imitation is not close to Mr. Harris' way of saying things, and he told him to read his book. Cut here means stop doing something undesirable. Envy here means jealousy. Sadist, a person who derives pleasure by giving pain or humiliation to others. Pardon, as you all know, the action of being forgiven for error or offense, forgiveness. Indeed, here it means truly. Frank asked him at what time did Mr. Harris ask him to come to school. Taplow told him 6:30. Frank suggested him to go and play golf for a little while, as he would be 10 minutes late. Taplow refuses as he is afraid of what would happen if he shows up in his absence and he might follow him home. Frank tells him that he is a little jealous of Mr. Harris because of the effect he has on all the boys in the form. He asks him if Harris beat students, to which Taplow says that no, he is not someone who derives pain by hurting others. There are one or two other teachers like that. Frank asked him to be more specific and he explains to him the meaning of sadist. Frank asked him what he was saying about other masters. Shriveled up meaning having no feelings. Exaggerating represents something as being worse than it really is. Taplow explains to him that there are many teachers in the school whose names he will not take, but they are a sadist. They think that the boys don't understand a thing. But Frank is different from them as he is young and he is from a science background and must know about sadism. Frank, in a surprising tone, exclaims about the condition of schools. Taplow goes on ranting about Mr. Harris. He shares that Mr. Crocker Harris is not a sadist and yet he has no feelings. He is a type of a person who might hate it when people like him. He further says he doesn't know about any master there who doesn't like being liked. Frank mocks him and says he hasn't seen any student using this quality for his own purpose. Taplow agrees and calls Mr. Crock again, to which Frank corrects him by saying his full name. Taplow corrects himself and admits that he still likes him and he cannot help it. Sometimes Mr. Harris sees it and he wrinkles even more, to which Frank replied that he must be exaggerating. The door upright is pushed open and Millie Crocker Harris enters. She is a thin woman in her late 30s, rather more smartly dressed than the general run of schoolmasters' wives. She is wearing a cape and carries a shopping basket. She closes the door and then stands by the screen watching Taplow and Frank. It is a few seconds before they notice her. Taplow shares further that one day Mr. Crocker Harris cracked one of his classic jokes to which no one laughed. He understood that the joke was meant to be funny and laughed anyway because he wanted to be polite and to feel sorry for him making such poor jokes. He doesn't remember what the joke was and asked Frank to suppose he cracked a joke right away and asked him to laugh. He imitated his teacher again and told Frank what his reaction was when he laughed at his joke. Mr. Crocker Harris asked him to explain the joke to the rest of the form as he was the only one laughing in the class. As he was saying this, the door of the classroom opened and Millie, the wife of Mr. Crocker Harris, entered the class. She was a thin woman who dresses smarter than the rest of the women who are wives of schoolmasters. She was wearing a cape and was carrying a shopping basket. She closed the door as she entered and stood next to the screen watching both of them talking. They noticed her after a few seconds. Infinitely meaning to a great extent. Frantically means desperately. As Frank was joking about telling the joke to others, he saw Millie and stopped talking. He turned around and was relieved by seeing her there and wished her hello. She replied hello without any expressions on her face and put her basket on the sideboard. Tableau asked Frank in a desperate tone if she had heard any of the conversation. Frank thought that she did because she was standing there for quite some time. Millie took her cape off and hung it on hall stand. Tableau, in a worrying tone, says if she did hear them, then he will not get his remove, and Frank tells him not to think too much. Frank crosses the fireplace. Millie takes the basket from the sideboard, moves above the table and puts the basket on it. Millie picks up the basket from the sideboard and puts it on the table. She asks Tableau if he is waiting for his husband, to which he replies yes. She tells him he is at the bursar's, means in the office, and it might take some time. If she was in his place, she might have left. Tableau replies that he said he will come. As Millie unpacks the things from the basket, she suggests him to go for a quarter of an hour and then come back to check on him. Tableau asks her if Mr. Harris comes back before him, then what will happen? Millie assured him that she will take the blame for this and takes out a prescription from the basket. She hands it over to him and asks him to bring medicines for her from the chemist. He agrees and crosses the door upright. Thank you, students. I hope you have understood the chapter. For better understanding, thorough reading of the chapter is very important.